Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Pisces for May 2015. Go to my website, aspiritualspark.com, or click on the link below this video to see more about my live coaching, also to see more about my 28-day virtual coaching program, both of which are available on a sliding scale, and both of which are intended to help you navigate through the stars with as much ease and grace and empowerment as possible. And while you're there, sign up for my free email newsletter. Coming soon, there will also be a class schedule. So depending on when you're watching this, you can also look out for that, upcoming classes. So what's going on in the month of May? So what we're leaving behind as we move into May is first that spring energy of Aries, of just furious, frenzied forward movement. And then we moved into more of the Taurus energy, a grounded kind of energy. So if this were, let's talk about this as a garden. In the earlier parts of spring and in the time before spring officially comes, but when the planets start moving into Aries, that's the spring, that's the seed planting time. So it's just planting as many seeds as possible. Then the Taurus energy comes in, and now's the time to steadfastly focus and water your garden. You know, taking the practical steps to follow through with the seeds that you've planted, keeping the birds away from eating your seeds, things like that. Just very focused on letting those seeds sprout and take root. That's what the Taurus energy is. So as we move into the beginning of May, we still have some of that Taurus energy. That's a very grounded, a very stable energy where we're still anchoring in the seeds that we planted in the previous months. But then pretty soon, the Gemini energy that has already started at the end of April for some of the planetary placement gets a foothold. I'm calling the theme of May, the twins dominate. The twins are the symbol for the sign of Gemini. And there is so much Gemini activity this month, and we're going to talk about that piece by piece. But that energy is in spirals. It moves in circles in, circles out. So it's very busy. It's very active. It's different from this grounded energy that we're leaving. So we've got quite a few individual transits to talk about and some general energies. So at the beginning of the month, we have May 3rd is a powerful day, and the days surrounding May 3rd, you'll feel both of these transits I'm about to discuss, where Mercury in Gemini is opposing Saturn in Sag. So maybe you know by now, maybe you don't, that an opposition is a 180-degree angle, and it's an angle of contention. It's an angle of opposing forces. And you generally feel that, like something is coming up against something that you're trying to do. So in this case, you have Mercury. Mercury is ruled by Gemini. Okay, so here, you're going to hear me say Gemini more than you ever have this month. And there's just so much going on with it. Okay, so Mercury is ruled by Gemini, and then we have Mercury in the sign of Gemini. So it's ruled by Gemini. When it's in the sign of Gemini, it's even more Gemini. And that's coming up against Saturn. You know, Saturn always represents this taskmaster, this stern, sometimes often authoritative force that is strong and sometimes feels like it has karmic roots, or where it has authority over something or someone, but it's this heavy force. And when it comes in an opposition to light, fun-having, spiraling around Mercury in Gemini, it kind of puts a halt to expression or movement. So we've got that kind of energy at the beginning of the month, at the same time as we have the full moon in Scorpio. So we know that the full moons bring emotional closings of chapters, endings of things, things coming to fruition, things coming to completion, things coming to a head, things coming to a fullness. And in Scorpio, whenever we have a full moon in a water sign like Scorpio, it tends to be even more emotional just because it carries that water to the nth degree. So those first several days, you know, I always say I like to schedule myself light around those full moons, because as news comes up or things come in, the last position you want to be in is having to tend to an overscheduled situation when you really just need some time to deal with what you're feeling and what's coming up and what needs to be addressed. So it's very likely that something that you're trying to do to express yourself or move your physical body or go somewhere, that Saturn comes and just says, oh no you don't, you're going to stay right here. And that trend is really solid through the whole month. We have 6 different aspects involving the sign of Gemini, some involving Mercury, which is ruled by Gemini, also in the sign of Gemini at this time, where something in Gemini is coming up with a square or an opposition, either to Saturn or later in the month, Neptune. So you've got this spinning Gemini energy that's social and it's chatty and it's expressive and it's got movement. And all these blocks are coming to say, okay, you can't spin too much. You can only spin too much. So in some cases, I'm always looking for how we are going to positively frame the challenges that could happen and what we can do with them most productively and gracefully. And so the way that I see the counterforces this month as helping us is because Gemini energy is very powerful. It spins, 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 spins. And it can spin out of control. It can spin to the point of being debilitated with lack of focus or scatteredness. So that all over the place energy that's so charming and that's so social and that has all the things that we love about Gemini energy, when taken to excess, can be very difficult to deal with. And so these opposing forces make the movement and the talking and the expressing stop. But that doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable. It's probably going to be annoying where you're trying to say something, you're trying to do something, and something is just stopping you or interfering or making things cloudy. So on the 15th, okay, so all that's on March 3rd and the days around, May 3rd and the days around May 3rd. So on May 15th, we've got Mars now in Gemini coming to oppose Saturn. And this is more of that theme that I was talking about, where you're trying to do something and it's getting blocked. Then right after that, on the 17th or the 18th, depending on where you are, we have the new moon in Taurus. But the new moon in Taurus, right, new moons are usually these positive seed planting time where you can set intentions, and usually it carries some good, positive, forward-moving energy. Well, this month, you've got that Mars-Saturn opposition right before it. And then you have Mercury about to go retrograde, which is on the 18th or 19th, depending on where you are. When Mercury goes retrograde, it slows things down. It interferes with forward movement. And this period of time, we're having Mercury go retrograde in the sign of Gemini, which Mercury already rules. So some of the things that we've come to associate Mercury retrograde with, interference with communication, with transportation, with mobility, those are such because Mercury is ruled by Gemini and Gemini rules those things. So when you have it retrograde in that sign as well, then all of these things are to an extra degree. So, and this is even more so true for Pisces this month, and this is all Pisces, whether you're early, middle, or late degree. Pisces has this Mercury retrograde occurring predominantly in the 3rd house, which is the house of Gemini, which is the house that's ruled by Gemini. Okay, so we have all this layers of Gemini, Gemini, Gemini. I told you I was going to say it 1,000 times. So it's not a really good time to do new things, to launch new things. It's not a great time to try to make forward movement in areas that you're definitely being blocked. There are certain times where you're supposed to be busting through obstacles and moving forward anyway. We've just come out of one of those periods of time before May. But now is a time to take a hint from the universe if things that you're trying to do are being slowed. Don't do those things and do other things. Now, I've got a huge list of things that it's good for you to do. And you might want to take note of these in a permanent place because these are general good things to do when Mercury's in retrograde, but especially when Mercury's retrograde in Gemini, right? So you can take this list with you, and whenever Mercury's retrograde, you can say, okay, I'm having trouble with all these things, so I'm just going to do these things. Okay, so some things to do. Watch out for your speed. Okay, people are going to be more likely to get speeding tickets or have other, driving infractions of whatever kind. You definitely want to schedule your car and vehicle or other vehicle maintenance. It's a fantastic time for that. Going back over anything involving communication or transportation is very much indicated. Like I said, especially for you, Pisces, at this time, because this going retrograde in your 3rd house, which rules these things. Something else that it's wonderful to do is to back up your phone or other devices. If you have awesome pictures and awesome other things on your devices and you don't have a cloud backup, you don't have some other backup, this is the time that you want to spend making sure to get everything in a safe place so that you have it. It's a good time to protect from viruses for your computers. It's a good time to do, to clear your computer out, run your disk utility, go through and delete old files. Do this with the caution that you want to be very meticulous because you don't want to miss something and delete something you really need. So just take that with you, where instead of just kind of like blazing through delete, 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 just pay some attention and give it some focus. Also, something to really look out for is watching your autocorrect on your devices, or what your voice to text winds up turning into. This makes me think of this bizarre situation I've had happen with my iPad, where I'm saying something and from the voice to text into an email, and it turns into some kind of profanity or something really horrendous. Anyway, I was writing something about booking a session, and somehow the F word in its active form got put in the email. Unfortunately, I caught it. But this period of time, there's going to be so much more of these things being sent so quickly, either to the wrong person, and not only to the wrong person, but the last person that you'd want to send that particular thing to because of quick fingers and not paying attention. Also, not checking what you wind up putting in the email is going to create a lot of problems for a lot of people at this time. So really look into how you can adjust this or keep an eye on it, because there's going to be a lot of things that come up with that. It's a fantastic time to reconnect with your siblings or other relatives or friends or places fond and familiar. Mercury retrograde, especially when Mercury is in Gemini, is a wonderful time to reconnect with people. People get concerned about travel during Mercury retrograde, and there are some things you need to look out for sure. But travel is really great in Mercury retrograde. It can be wonderful. It can be a great time to travel because it's indicating going back to something, or someone coming back to see you, and this rekindling type of energy. So, just be really aware of your gates and your luggage, and try not to check things, check baggage if you can. Just overdo your meticulousness with your travel plans. If you're taking a road trip, overdo how much you care for, your maintenance schedule before you go. Things like that. So, something else that this Mercury retrograde can do, especially being in Gemini, is to exacerbate nervous symptoms. Now, Pisces in general tends to be very emotional and to have these manifestations of nervous symptoms, nervous stomach, other things that come up. So, and sometimes the tendency when this happens is to self-medicate. And of course, that I'm always suggesting that you look for a different way rather than doing something that indulges in something that's contrary to your higher good. But as you see these energies, you're going to be more nervous. So you'll have to move your body. You have to figure out ways to work with your nervousness in a healthy, beneficial way so that it doesn't overtake you and make you make decisions that are not discerning. There's so much energy going around, and this energy is not the typical type of Pisces energy, although Pisces energy does also go in a spiral. It goes in and down, in a spiral in and down. Gemini energy goes in a spiral, some in, but some out and up. So it's like an opposing energy, and it's not something that Pisces energy is generally very comfortable with. So it's going to bring up all of these things. So for you early degree Pisces, you're also going to have some element of this Mercury retrograde. So let me just tell you when Mercury's going to be retrograde too, and then I'll talk about early and late degree differences. So Mercury is going retrograde between May 17th or May 18th or May 19th, depending on where your time zone is. And it will be retrograde until June 11th. Now the shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts May 4th. And then the shadow period after Mercury goes direct runs through June 27th. So essentially from May 4th through June 27th, you're in this whole Mercury retrograde thing. Not a great time to sign contracts, not a great time to make long-term commitments, because things are going to change and you'll wish you hadn't committed. So, you're all feeling this Mercury retrograde in the third house, even though it's going to be different depending on what degree your placement is. If you have an early degree Pisces placement, you're also going to feel some of this retrograde in the fourth house, which is the house of home. This makes this more likely that you'll return home, or that people from home will come visit you. This is also one of the most fantastic times to rearrange furniture. So going backwards into house things, clearing clutter, rethinking your floor plan, you know, even some people will reconsider where they're living or their geography. You know, it's thinking, rethinking, reconsidering home things. And, but it is a great time to shift the energy in your house, especially in ways where you don't have to make large purchases. You can get some feng shui books from the library and delve into some of the, you know, decorating or feng shui or other things for your house without making a commitment of buying the book, because anything that you buy in Mercury retrograde usually has a short kind of shelf life in your world. So you don't want to spend too much money. But it's good to check into things like that. Now, if you have the middle degree placements with Pisces, you're going to have this all in the third house, which we have been talking about the whole time. And if you have a late degree Pisces placement, then you're going to feel some of this retrograde in the second house, which rules money, which rules finances, which rules things, which rules security, which rules value and what you place value on. So that questioning process of what is it that you value in your life, and how are your actions or your life matching up with what you value. So let's say on top on your list is you value your family, but then you find you're spending most of your time working. And of course you're working to take care of your family. But if you're neglecting your family or not being with your family because of it, this is the time where you reconsider, is there a better way? Can we have less overhead and work less to spend more time with family? You get into the things that are what has value to you. So doing that exercise is really, really powerful. And that's good for anyone of any placement at any time. But especially you late degree Pisces placements, you're going to be kind of having this trip in this looking back over things involving the topics of value. So we've got on the 18th, 19th, Mercury is going to go retrograde. Then the last week of May, so between around the 25th and the 31st, we have 3 aspects with Neptune that are challenging. We've got Mars, Mercury, and the Sun all going to make squares to Neptune. A square, again, is a challenging angle, just like the oppositions that we talked about earlier in the month. And Neptune is a planet that when it's in a square, or really in any angle, but when it's in a square, it can add more challenges. And Neptune can bring like a cloud or a fog to things, not having all the information, not having all the details, something seeming very rosy and not being so, or you being suspicious of something, but maybe it winds up being okay. You just don't have a clear picture. And when you have 3 planets that are making this angle to it, it's just like really confusing. And when Mercury is in retrograde during this time, it's just like, forget about trying to make a decision. Forget about, especially if it's of major consequence, forget about trying to make a finite, decisive move with something, because you're just not in a position to do that. So in a way, knowing this, rather than worrying about it, saying, oh, I'm going to be confused, that you can take that, and maybe that's also true, but I want you to think of the positive way of looking at this and saying, okay, it's just not going to be time to make a decision then, you know, and just accept that and wait till the energy is more clear. So we have an interesting time period, and if you've been listening to my videos for a while, I've been preempting this time all through the beginning of the year, that once we start this May 4th retrograde thing with Mercury, we are into retrogrades until October in succession. Okay, so as soon as Mercury goes direct on June 11th, then the energy clears on June 27th. We might think, yay, Mercury is direct and we can make all these decisions now. And some of you can, and for certain things you can. You know, like I can think of someone, an example of someone who is going to move, and they're not moving for business reasons. They're moving just to move, and they're going to wait until Mercury is direct. Even though once Mercury is direct, we're moving into the shadow period for Venus retrograde. Okay, so Venus goes retrograde on the July 25th, but the shadow period starts all the way on June 22nd. And it goes, this Venus retrograde energy goes all the way till the end of September, even though it officially goes direct in the beginning of September. So it's Venus is retrograde from July 25th to the first weekish of September. But the shadows stretch from June 22nd through the end of September. Venus retrograde is not good for certain things, not good for making big purchases, not good for redecorating a house, not good for making long-term commitments involving romantic things. There are some caveats to it, but in general, not the best time to start a business, actually one of the worst times to start a business or to launch something. So there's not really any really clear energy for moving forward. That's why in my previous horoscopes I said you needed to do that already, like in March and April. So if you're thinking you're just really ready to launch something, reconsider. And if you have to, do like a soft launch if you can't get around it. Do more research. Do something under a certain name when you know you're going to bring it out under a different name, you know, where you're experimenting with something. It's a time to try things on. And that's very much the theme of May, as it will be through October. You want to try things on. You want to go back over things. You want to be the earthworm. Anytime we have retrogrades, you want to be the earthworm, where the earthworm goes over and over and over and over and over soil until it becomes super fine and super fertile and super rich. You know, and that is what we want to do. Go back and back and back and back and back over things. And you're going to have plenty of opportunity to do that, because anytime you're trying to blaze forward, these transits are going to keep you back. So rather than getting frustrated about it, then just know you're not supposed to be doing that. Spend your time doing the things you are supposed to be doing and have a peaceful, fun, restful time. That's something else that this is good for. The speed that the previous transits were propelling things forward before May is not something that's supposed to be sustained long term. You need a rest. And this is a time for rest. So I hope you enjoy your rest, and go to my website, aspiritualspark.com, where you can see more about my personal live coaching and my 28-day virtual coaching program, which is awesome, and it's on a sliding scale. And if you're looking for direction, if you're looking for a project that can really help you move forward in your life, if you've reached a glass ceiling and you can't break it, it's intended to help you with that. Definitely sign up for my free email newsletter and look out for classes that I might be scheduling for the future. I hope you have a wonderful May. I'll see you next month. Bye.